So today I'm working on my indirect measurement device, and to this point we've seen how I drew the arc here, the big improvised compass, right? I then used a protractor to extend out here and create all the degree marks along the edge of my protractor. And then I also created a vernier scale right here on the outside of it. Now I've gone ahead and poked a hole through here and put in a bolt. You could use pretty much anything as a pivot right there. And as you change the angle of elevation, basically it's changing the angle of this top edge. But when I put my sight on, I'm going to center my sight right through this center of the arc, right? And and that's good. What I need next, and what I've started on, is a stand for it, right? So I took a couple pieces of cardboard here and made a sturdy base, another piece here, and glued it on here with hot glue. You could use duct tape as well. Okay, I had hot glue handy. I thought that would work well. The tricky part is when you put on a whole bunch of hot glue like that, the glue tends to stay hot for a while. It's a great opportunity for you to burn yourself, but also it doesn't become sturdy for several minutes. So you've got to be sure to hold it in place. Now over here on this part, I made a mistake on my angle on this piece of cardboard. I thought I had a right angle and I didn't. So I ended up having to cut the piece of cardboard and bend this whole thing a little bit to make this stand up straight in relation to this base piece. Okay? So my next step is going to be to poke a hole in the upright and run this screw all the way through it so it all becomes sturdy together. And I'll have a sturdy mounting for this screw, and that will allow this thing to pivot neatly, right? So I have a drill bit here, okay, and I'm going to mark just where I want my my bolt to go through. Okay, that looks pretty good. And this is an easy way to poke a neat hole, but pretty much anything you could use a knife, a pair of scissors, or whatever to make a hole through here. Now, of course, this is sturdy-ish, right? It is not real strong, so you're going to have to be really careful while you're building it and while you're using it, not to mess up and bend it, because it definitely is just cardboard. I could easily make a bad move here and have the whole thing bent up irreparably, right? So that's looking pretty good right there. So I'm going to stop right now and go on and work on making my pieces for attaching the scope. But in the meantime, this gives you a pretty good idea how we can then make the base for it, how we can attach some reinforcement here. I'm actually fortunate enough to have a wing nut, so I'm going to put the wing nut on here like this as a way to hold it all in place tight, right? And of course, if I'm careful, I can go ahead and glue my stationary piece here down. We know that this outside arc, this section here, is going to be stationary. Only this part is going to move in relation to it. And we'll take our reading right here at the zero mark of the vernier scale. Okay, so the zero mark of the vernier scale is here. We'll take our reading here of what angle or how many degrees the thing has been rotated. See, at the moment this is horizontal and the zero mark lines up just right there, and so as I tilt it I can read 1 degree, 2 degrees, 5 degrees, 10, and so on like that. And because we've got a nice matchup between this curve and this part, these are staying fairly consistently, just tiny bit apart, right? So I can really see how the lines line up with each other. And that's a good thing. That's what I'm after. Okay. We'll check back in a minute after we do some more stuff. So a couple things before before you start working on yours. A couple things to consider is how you're going to place your scope on here. My plan is to make a two-piece scope, probably, like of like a pipe kind of thing back here. Okay, so I've got my zero line here, right? I need to carefully draw this and extend it across the cardboard so I can neatly place the scope, right? I don't want the scope to come all the way out here and cover up these numbers, right? I don't want it to be in the way of being able to read. So I'll probably have the scope stop short somewhere right about here. But I'm probably going to put a piece here and a piece of pipe here, when you look through the two, peep sight on this end and a crosshair on this end. So I can sit back in this area and look up through the sight to find my angle of elevation, right? At the same time, I'm probably going to do a weight right here, a string and a weight, to have my indicator for if the project is level in this direction. And of course, this is the one that's going to be more critical, right? If it's a little bit tilted this way or this way, a little tiny bit tilted, that might not matter so much. But my plan is still have that weight right here and then put another one right here, so that would check for tilt in this direction, right? So I'm going to try to be very careful. I'm actually going to use my level. Since I have a level, I'm going to put the level up against here and draw a line. When this is level, then I'll have a vertical line here and have my weight line up with that. And on this side, I'll do the same thing, use a level here, make a line that's vertical, and then hang weight right over top of that line, right? So that I can make sure it's level in this direction. Now what I probably am going to do is come up with some adjustable feet for this base. That'll be easy for me because I have all kinds of hardware sitting around here to do that. That may not be so easy for you, so I would suggest that maybe when you get ready to use it, you just have some extra pieces of cardboard, right? Easy enough, to take a couple thicknesses of cardboard and put it under one corner or another to try to level up your device. Okay, so I remember that I spent some time, constructing the base, putting together this thing here, right? If you do have a hot glue gun, they're a great tool, and it's very helpful for this kind of thing. Be really careful that you don't stick your hand in a big blob of glue while it's still hot, because it stays hot for a while. When you have a mass of heat like that, it holds that heat long enough, and I mean it's also troublesome because it stays really pliable. So when it's still hot, it's real easy for the pieces here to come out of place, right? But the other thing is real easy for you to stick your finger in that glue and be unhappy, right? Not to mention, of course, we'll do our 10-second safety briefing here. The glue is hot. That metal part right there is hot. This part is fine. I can touch this without any problem, right? But all up here is hot, but especially the metal tip. So if I touch that thing, I'm going to be unhappy. Or, like I mentioned, basically what it's doing is taking this plastic material here, this plastic glue, and melting it, right? And then when you pull the trigger, it squeezes the hot glue out the end of the gun, right? Well, that's great, but you can see I can just see the steam coming off of it when I did that, right? So that glob of glue right there, and especially when it's a substantial bunch, if it's a little tiny strip of glue, which is good for some places, that's going to cool off really quickly. You see right there, that little thin, shallow bit of glue right there, that's cooled off like pretty much right away, right? I can touch that. That glob right there is trying to hurt me. If I put my hand, then I'll let it drip on my hand, or I stick my finger in it somehow and not paying attention, yeah, that's going to stay hot for a good while yet. Okay, so it's a big difference. You have this real thin layer of glue as opposed to a big glob. And the tricky part is, you know, for a connection like this on here, you really need a big glob of glue. You can't put on a little skinny part and expect it to hold. It's kind of like a weld. It needs to have significant sticking to the one part and up to the other part. Okay, and of course, last thing, the other thing you can do if you don't have hot glue gun, or if you want to simply reinforce your hot glue joint, is to use a piece of tape. Right now, it's helpful if it's not like just you know, 1 inch or 3/4 inch cellophane tape, but it's actually some wider tape. Either packing tape is fine, masking tape is okay, duct tape is probably the best. You know, if you put this down here, you can see I'm going to work hard to get it sticking onto both surfaces. This one here, get enough on there, right? Okay, and that's going to do a nice job of reinforcing that and keeping it from moving from side to side. So, so hot glue and or tape to hold this together. Some kind of mechanism here for a pivot. If you don't have something fancy like a bolt, then probably just put in a pencil or something and try to keep the hole tight. Don't wiggle it so much that the hole gets real loose and sloppy. Right? You want it to be a nice snug fit there, and that'll definitely help the thing be a little more consistent. Okay. Thanks for watching, and good luck. And remember, don't cut yourself with this thing either. These guys, they love to make you hurt.